What's it say?
Well, it says, I love it when a plan comes together.
All right. I've got a very, very interesting podcast for you today. I was in the middle of cutting some film to do some more film for you guys, and I saw a little snippet from Albert Breer, a conversation talking about the Dolphins and what he thinks the possibility of the Dolphins front office management group, upper management, is or could be like, and that it might already be set up. And he's connected. And so maybe this isn't an intuition or a gut feeling. But even if it is, when I heard it, it resonated with me. And I think it's a strong possibility. And it does tie into some of the things I've said in the past. But it is very interesting and also maybe promising. And I went through the whole day. After I saw this, I started cross-indexing all the franchises, how they operate. I started cross-indexing the leadership groups to kind of see how it played out. I built out a whole host of information, and it got a little deep. So I'm going to do this thing in two parts. I'm going to give you the overview because, some people just don't want to go on that long. A lot of information gets lost. Tomorrow, I'm going to dial in my cross-indexing. I'm going to go over histories of different franchises and the people involved who are running it to show you the possibilities if this is true, how the Dolphins organizational group can play out to be successful for Miami. Albert Einstein said, I think and think for months, for years. 99 times the conclusion is false. The 100th time I'm right. And that's what I try to do here. A lot of people, they have their opinions and they fight for their opinions. I do to a certain extent, but in my life I've been wrong so many times. I constantly recheck my opinions and my thoughts. I put it out there. I see what other people say because, guys, even if you're close on your opinions and evaluations, but not exact, there's still room to grow. So for me, give it right out there, I want one man, one king. There's a lot of precedent through NFL history that this works. And it is a good philosophy when you get the right king, the enlightened monarch. But it's not the only way. And I had to check myself to say, well, look, this is what I've seen through my history of my life mostly, and this is what I want. But if you have a separation of powers, now Albert Breer said,
couple guys that are important too, the president, Tom Garfinkel, and then Brandon Shore, who's their cap chief. I think he's going to have like a role in all of this too. And I know people haven't heard that name, but I think it's an important name. I think he could wind up being like what Kevin Demoff was in LA. And now Tony Pastores is there. What Mike Disner has been in Detroit. These names may not mean anything to people, but they're guys who kind of were stabilizing forces in their organizations.
He believes that Brandon Shore and Garfunkel are going to be two pieces of the upper management with a GM who might be, most likely, I think, Champ Kelly. And there is issues with that. We've kind of had some of that before with the Philbin and the Ireland and Aponte. But there was things there that may be a little different than this situation. But we might already have things in play to lock down our future as far as leadership. And if that's the case, there's a lot of stuff underneath that's going to make sense. So, and it doesn't mean it's going to play out perfectly, but it does make sense. All right, so you can see this little graphic here. NFL leadership structures comparisons. 49ers, Rams, and Lions, they have something in play that is reminiscent of what we could be going to that Breer says might be the possibility. And you can see I got the Dolphins on the bottom. Now, 49ers, they got John Lynch, GM football ops, Marte, football ops and cap strategy. And then you have ownership and business president. You've got the Rams, Les Snead, general manager, Tony Pastores, COO, football operations, contracts, and salary. So 2 guys running the show along, obviously, with the head coach. The Lions, now they're a 3-headed monster. They got Holmes, executive VP and GM, Rod Wood, team president, Allison Mackey, CFO, administration officers. And this would play out similar to what the Dolphins might be looking at, whether it's Champ Kelly as interim GM or full-time GM, Brandon Shore, SVP, Football and Business Administration, Tom Garfinkel, Vice Chairman, President, CEO. And so Ross has a problem with over-trusting people. But if you look at Garfinkel, he put the F1 in here, and he's done a darn good job. And he's a smart guy. I don't know what his part could be as far as the football side. But, Ross totally trusts him, and he's successful at that. You look at Shore, he cut the purse strings this year, and he undercut Breer, who was kind of like a total guy, the one man, one king. And so it shows that he is more fiscally conservative than, say, Breer. But it looks now, if this ends up being the case, that they understood that Breer was on his way out and Shore was assuming control. Now, if you look at Champ Kelly, as I did more digging into him, he really fits a model of being erudite, a smart guy, and then also the barbarian, which is what I want from a GM. So he can cross both worlds. He can enter to the business world with the upper management, say Ross and Garfinkel and Shore, but then he's played ball and he's not a wallflower like Breer, and he can enter into the football side with the coaches and the players. And if you saw, he was greeting players when they came off the field, which is reminiscent of Howie Roseman. So I thought that is very, very interesting. Now, Champ Kelly, his background and GM comparisons, Champ Kelly, he's been a personnel guy. He's climbed the scouting ladder. He's an IBM engineer. Very, very smart. Didn't realize that. MBA in business and analytics. And I find some people saying analytics is garbage. Everybody in the NFL is using it. It just depends on how you utilize it. But that is a core asset. So if you got a problem with analytics, you got a problem with leadership in the Dolphins and just about every franchise. He's been an interim GM and he has experience. This comparison is like Holmes and Snead personnel background. And like a 49ers structure, fits shared management with cap and business executives to kind of run those shows to allow the GM to focus mostly on the personnel, whether it's through trading, although that will tie into the finances, and then the draft, and then, obviously UDFAs and all that other stuff. So it would make sense that if this is the structure in play, and this is what Ross intends to go to, why he probably wants McDaniel back. And it's probably, if you get the right group of these 3 guys, and it takes a year to vet out McDaniel with the right personnel, and it takes a year to maybe get off to his contract or vet him out for a second year, then it's not so damaging, because if this is going to be the core group, if that is a solid group, you can switch out quarterbacks. Look at 49ers, how they moved out of guys. You can move off a head coach, and that's happened multiple times. You can look at what had just happened with the Eagles. They won a Super Bowl with Peterson. They moved off him, and they got the other guy, and then winning again because Roseman took over in 2015. And if you've got the right leadership group, everything underneath can be replaced. But if you got the guys underneath that are right, but the top is screwed up, you're always going to get inconsistencies. And so I thought Kelly would be better than Breer. I don't know if he's the best guy. I don't even know if he's going to be the guy, because he could still stay within the organization if there's another GM out there. But here's another thing to consider. If you look at our draft this year, it's one of the best drafts we've had. And if you could see consistency at this top 3 leadership department, and even if McDaniel suffers and Tua suffers, in 27, you can move off both those guys. And if you hit the draft again and your cap is cleared and the league sees this team, this franchise is coherent, and that's the key, coherency. We're constantly changing and morphing, and that doesn't bring consistency with a troubled roster and then all the stuff in the background. But it might be more interesting or attractive to a top flight head coach if he sees these guys finally got their act together at the top. There's going to be stability there. There's coherency there. And then you're drafting well that, hey, I'm going to come into a spot that's got some nice talent. And one of the films I want to do is show how Biggers and Grant and Phillips, you have locked down a major position in multiple points in the draft, a core position. And when I do my next part, I'm going to tie into how that is a good news because it fits another very successful ownership group. And it's the philosophy I talked about for the last couple of years. And it's not about just getting the quarterback. It's about building the team. So if Kelly's the guy or another GM, and you've got either Kelly or another GM who is fine with the guys at the top, then you'll find a head coach that says there is stability. Because that's what a head coach wants. He wants talent. He wants opportunity to win because he never knows when he'll get that opportunity again. And he wants stability, something we haven't had. And more than stability, he wants an effective group that can drive talent to him. I know some people already have things cemented in their head. We suck. We're going all the way. You just got to keep revetting things and keep checking them out. But this does offer possibility. And after my studies, I was a little bit excited. Not saying it is. I think stability could be coming. And at the very least, that raises the floor. How these guys do, their philosophy of their team, how they draft, how they pull things together, who they get to lead the team, that will set the ceiling. But I do think pulling Breer out, setting this model, certainly will raise the floor and maybe even raise it a little bit higher than I thought. So, hope you enjoyed. Get back to you tomorrow, the long one, detailed one. Curtis saying, be well, go Phins. Curtis out. Start building your own online sports book today by getting signed up with aceperhead.com service that'll allow you to book action on sports from all around the world.